Welcome to Layers of Communication with your host, Lydia Taggart. Life presents experiences that add layers to who we are and how we see the world, affecting how we communicate. Lydia is here to take apart the layers and create new ways to connect and build relationships. So now, please welcome the host of Layers of Communication, your core boss, Lydia Taggart.
Hello, welcome to the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. I'm your host, Lydia Taggart, and this is Layers of Communication. We welcome your calls today at 1-866-451-1451. And today we're going to be talking about spouse communication relationships. You know, after about 22 years, we've almost been married for 22 years. I have some systems in place to strengthen and support each other, even though we go through struggling times, like having quadruplets or being unemployed for 3 months. We're looking for a job for my husband. So we still have this happy communication. It wasn't always like this. Have you ever felt like you wanted to just run and hide and wish that the conversation would just go away? You know, when we were first married, we actually had that problem, like literally running away from each other and chasing each other down. We had such different backgrounds where one of us was like, you deal with it, you confront it, and you hash it out and whatever. And the other one was more like, well, you just let it blow over and talk about it later. So we had such drastic backgrounds to combine into one relationship. It was pretty exciting. And I remember one time I was so frustrated because my husband wouldn't tell me what his favorite food was. In my family growing up, there were a few special days that you might get to have your favorite food made. And I had always been told, you know, the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. So I was like, I really need to know what his favorite food is. I'd already married him, but I still really needed to get to his heart through his stomach for some reason. And so years and years, I was like, what's your favorite food? I just want to make your favorite food for your birthday. And he would never tell me. He would blow it off and walk away, or we'd have some other distraction come up. So finally, after about 15 years of me trying to find out what his favorite food is, he just exploded. I just love food, okay? There's not a favorite. It's just food. I love food. And we get to that point sometimes in our relationships where we just have to talk because it's not going to go away. And today we have Julie May with us. I love Julie. She's one of my good friends. She has been inspiring youth and adults as a teacher and mentor for over 10 years. She's a keynote speaker, author, mentor, coach, and an A-list event producer. She does have some awesome events. She's a president and founder of Shine Events, which produces events that inspire individuals to simplify, heal, inspire, nourish, and empower their lives. She produces the Joyful Living Women's Conference, where thousands of women come to be inspired by some of the top speakers, authors, and coaches in the nation. And she is fantastic. She's helped her clients bring in 5 to 6 figures on their first events. She serves on the board of directors for the Keynote Speakers Coalition, and Julie is one of the co-authors for the #1 best-selling book, Success Through Failing. So, Julie, welcome to the show. What has brought you to be an expert in the field of communicating with a spouse who won't talk or doesn't want to talk?
Thank you so much. Yeah, well, it started out as won't talk, so that's solid. This is my background a little bit. So both my husband and I, this is our second marriage. And so both of us have been in a first marriage, and our first marriage lasted a long time. So it wasn't one of those, you know, we were married for 3 months and then moved on or something. You know, we had first marriages that kind of lasted a while and did quite a bit of damage. And then this was our second marriage. And so both of us came into this with all kinds of baggage, especially around communication. It just wasn't a safe place for either of us in our first marriages. And my position going into it was I was the, well, let's just confront everything head on and be really open. And I was that person. So, you know, from your intro, that was me. And then my husband was, talking is not safe. I'm not going to do it at all to anyone ever. And so
Isn't that
that's how
funny?
we
There always
started.
seems to be both in each relationship, there always seems to be a confronter and an avoider. I find that
Hmm.
fascinating that there's
That's
almost always one of
exactly
that
it.
situation.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
cracking me up when you introed like that. I was like, that's exactly how it goes. Almost every time there's the confronter and the avoider, right? And
Yeah.
so I would just want to be super open about everything because my point of view, and I still feel this way, if you can talk about things in a calm, rational way and discuss your feelings, then everything in a marriage goes a little bit better. And I still feel that way. However, he was coming from this place of talking is scary. It always leads to fights and bad things happen. And so if you just avoid it, everything will just smooth over, which doesn't work. So that's, and we have been married now for 15 years. And we have this beautiful family. We have 7 kids all together. We each came in with 3 kids, which was its own level of frustration. And then we had one together. And so, we had a lot we had to communicate. When you have kids from previous marriages, we went through like all kinds of stuff, man. We went through job losses and moves and, trying to do, his kids actually live in Texas, which is several states away. And so you're trying to coordinate, how much time and effort and money is spent in Texas and how much is in Utah. And so those are kind of the issues we dealt with from the beginning. And, the fact that we're even still married and happy testifies that we're getting pretty good at this. So, yeah.
Yes, I think that's a really important point to point out too, that you can be happy in a long-lasting relationship when you communicate effectively. You don't have to just put up with each other and like stick it out for the kids or something. You can have a happy relationship and love each other so much when you have open communication and respect for the other points of view that are there. So what is
Yeah, that's exactly
one
what
tip? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying that's exactly what we're talking about. Go on.
Yeah. So can you give us one tip? How did you get from all that baggage to being in this place of happily married?
So my first tip is that you have to make sure that the other person knows it's safe. So that is like the absolute biggest hurdle. What we overcame, and I think almost everyone has to overcome when the other person is kind of the avoider. Why are they avoiding it? Because they feel like it's not safe. If they've had bad experiences with that before, they're just going to go, okay, I'm just not going to go there. That's just not a safe place for me, so we're just not going to talk. So the first thing you have to do is set up safety. And there's a few ways we've done this. One of the ways we've been working on that this last year is we go somewhere safe. So, like, if we have a discussion that we feel like is people have some strong feelings on it both ways, we'll, like, go out to dinner or something. So it's a space where we feel like, okay, this is a space where we're going to have fun. We love each other. We're having a nice meal. It kind of sets the tone for a nice evening. And it just, when you're outside of your own personal home, sometimes it can add a level of safety around it. So I came from an abusive first relationship where it was like physically abusive. And so sometimes if I'm in a public space, it feels safer. And my husband his wife was pretty abusive as well. So it's one of those things that you don't think about necessarily as being safer, but it does. It's one of those silly things that can add a layer of safety that you don't think about.
Oh, awesome. That's why I have safety as the first step in our frame training too, because it's so, so important. After this break, we'll come back and talk more with Julie May about creating safe places. You're listening to TuneIn Radio and the BBM Global Network. I'm your host, Lydia Taggart, for Layers of Communication, and our call-in number, if you want to call in, is 1-866-451-1451. Welcome back to Layers of Communication. I'm your host, Lydia Taggart, and this is the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Your calls are welcome at 1-866 866-451-1451. We're visiting today with Julie May, and just before the break, we were talking about creating safe places. And I think, Julie, we have these ideas that we're supposed to have pillow talk and make our room the place that we're supposed to hash it all out and everything. But I really believe, like you said, it's good to have a place created for those kinds of conversations that might have like some passion that's not really the bedroom kind of passion involved in, like, go to a public restaurant or something. We can have that safe space. There's also, we don't want that negative energy in our bedroom that will affect how we sleep and how we relate. And if we want to have a happy moment, then we've got that negative memory in that same place. So I love your idea of going somewhere safe.
Thank you. I love that. One of the worst pieces of advice I ever got when we first got married was to never go to bed angry. And so that was like a mistake we made when we first got married, is we would hash it out in the bedroom, and then nobody could go to sleep until everyone was satisfied, which led to just, increased tempers and us not sleeping, frankly. And here's what I found is when I went to sleep, I felt better the next morning. It was like, you remember why you love each other. You still talk about things. You don't just leave it there unresolved. But, if you can go somewhere else when everyone's a little bit more calm, it just seems to work quite a bit better. I don't like having those kind of discussions in my bedroom, and that's one of those fallacies that I feel like we need to dispel that. It does not work. It's not a good thing. You don't want to have those kind of conversations in the bedroom. It leaves, that negative energy right where you want to be intimate and close, and that's like the space where you want to show you love each other. Anyway, that is one of my big pet peeves. But the worst advice I ever got was don't go to bed angry. I don't know. Did you ever have any experiences with that?
Oh, my husband and I have never gone to bed angry. We have had very early mornings at 4:00 in the morning before we've gone to bed, but we never have gone to bed angry. But we don't discuss things in the bedroom. We go to the kitchen or the living room or somewhere, sometimes outside if we need to. And we've tried, taking a break from each other, not from each other, but like, I need to go catch my breath for a minute, and we'll set the timer for 5 minutes and say, okay, it's time to come back and talk now. And early on, it was really important for us to say, I'm not leaving you. I'm not leaving our relationship. I'm leaving this conversation to get my head straight, and I'll be back in a minute. And so that was really important. But we never ever went overnight in an argument or disagreement. But we also never had that in our bedroom.
There you go. So not in the bedroom.
Not in the bedroom.
See, there's so many ways to do this. Yeah. But, we have had somewhere and I've gone, you know what? I think I will feel better if I just go to sleep. It's like the break sort of situation, but it was longer. Uh-huh. Because, I'm grumpy in the middle of the night, man. It's like 2 a.m., I'm going to be grumpy. And the next day, I felt a lot more calm. So I just want people to know there's more than one way to do this, Do what kind of works for you. And if things are feeling like it's a little loud and a little, emotions are too involved, you might want to, even if it's step away for 5 minutes to gather yourself, you might want to do that for a minute just to gather yourself. But I love the communication you mentioned of, I'm not stepping away from the marriage. I'm not stepping away from the situation. I'm just collecting myself. And then we're going to readdress when I feel a little more calm. So I like that because that's exactly how we deal with that. So, yes.
Yeah. And sometimes we do need to have an overnight if that's what it calls for. I'm remembering back those few times that we were up until 4:00 in the morning. We weren't really angry and hashing it out. We were trying to come to an understanding. We had already gone through the emotions, and we were just discussing things to try and finalize what's really happening. So I think that what's really the very most important thing in a relationship is to communicate with each other like that, saying, I need a break. I'm tired. I need to sleep. Can we talk about this more tomorrow? Or sometimes with our kids more than my spouse, we have an appointment set up once a week where they have their personal time and we can discuss anything like that. Sometimes we've had when we're really, really busy and we don't get time to communicate the way we want to. We've had in the past a bucket where they can just drop their questions or their concerns, like I forgot I need new shoes, or silly things that feel like they're not really important, but they can be really important if they're neglected for a couple of weeks. And then we have an appointment each week that's on their calendar as their own personal time that we go over those concerns. So they're not like ignored or forgotten. And I think with the spouse, it's really, really cool to do a text message. Hey, I just thought of this and we need to talk about this sometime soon. Do you have any communication tips that you've developed of your own?
I like what you said about the texting that says we need to talk about this soon, because here's another mistake. This is like the how to learn from all of Julie's mistakes lesson. Another mistake I would make would be, hey, we need to talk later. Okay, guys hate that. They hate that because then they're stressing about what you have to talk about. If you didn't mention ominous? It must be something really bad. And so then it's like anxiety and stress. But, it was crazy how that just doesn't work. But
yeah,
we can talk more about that. But yeah, make sure you say in the text, we need to talk about this specific thing.
Yes, and that's really good for just leaving a voicemail or something like, who called me? Why do they want to talk to me? And I think it goes for spouses as well. Okay, we're going to take our break and we'll talk more about these communication tips with Julie May. Welcome back to Layers of Communication. I'm your host, Lydia Taggart, and this is the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We welcome your calls at 1-866-451-1451. And remember, if you want to connect with us, go to lydiataggart.com and download your free ebook about the layer of time. Today we're visiting with Julie May about communicating with a spouse who's maybe reluctant to talk with you. Before the break, we were just talking about how important it is to add the specifics to your messages of, I need to talk, we need to talk, and specifying about this. Julie, what other tips do you have about communicating with your spouse who doesn't really want to?
So one of the things that has been really helpful for us when we're having a communication, we're trying to share ideas that, maybe we disagree on, or maybe we're just trying to brainstorm something, is it's really important to validate the other person's ideas and their feelings. And that's part of the safety. If they feel like, even if you come to an agreement that's different than their original idea, if you validate that's how they feel and that those are good ideas, then they're going to be more willing to talk to you next time. And, let's be honest, their idea, you married them for a reason, right? These are smart people that we're married to. They have very valid feelings and ideas, and they need to know that we feel like they're important. So a way you can do that is, let's say I'm having a communication time with my husband, and we're discussing, what to do with one of the children. When he says something like, well, I feel like it would be really helpful if one of these daughters went to a different school. If I restate that, so he hears that I heard what he said, so you think that maybe if we changed her school, that would help? He knows that I heard him. So restating and kind of doing it with a question at the end, so I make sure that what I'm restating is what he was saying in the first place. So that helps with, are we actually communicating what we think we are? And then after he kind of comes back with, yeah, I really feel like, she's just struggling where she's at, and maybe if we made a move, that would be, it would help her out. Maybe that's his position, right? And so then I would come back with, yeah, I think you might have something there. Let's discuss that option along with maybe a few other options and see what we think. So you're opening the door for, we're going to brainstorm a little, and you're also saying, I'm validating what you just said and your feelings on this. So that's something really, really important, especially as you're starting into trying to communicate with somebody who doesn't feel comfortable sharing. Really make sure that they feel validated, that you're understanding what they're saying by restating that question and showing that their feelings and opinions are mattering.
All right, I love that validating piece. Also, we get so ingrained in this feeling like the real world, the whole rest of the world, nobody's listening. There's so many voices, and when we say, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. Okay, good. And that's the end of it. It's like nobody ever really wants to listen to us. But when we do this way of restating with a question on the end, it really does open us up to be like, oh, you're listening. You want to know something about me? And I love your path of brainstorming instead of my way versus your way, coming together and let's brainstorm and create something together. I love that part. How did you learn the brainstorming piece?
Do you know what? It was actually something I saw somebody do in business with me. And so it was like, I started noticing I'd go to business meetings and stuff with this person, and they would use that a lot. And I was like, wait a minute, that is totally genius. I bet you that. And here's the thing. When a principle works one place, if it's a true principle, it'll work like throughout. And so I'm like, I'm going to try that at home because I loved how open that made it feel. It didn't feel like my way, your way. We have to compromise because here's the thing is I'm not silly enough to think that I have the only good ideas out there are mine, It's like when you really come to that point where you see each other as super, super valuable, and maybe if we just have that synergy together when we work together and we just brainstorm ideas, that's when the best ideas happen. And that's true of business. It's true in all of your relationships. So I just started using that at home, and I'm like, that works so much better. It was pretty cool.
I love it. That is so true. If it works one place, it works everywhere. That is so true. And the compromise, I call it co-promise. If you take out the M and put in a little hyphen there, it's a co-promise. You don't ever have to give up necessarily one thing or another to make it work together. You can co-promise and say, I want this and you want this, and we agree together, and that brainstorming. I love that. All right, Julie, how has this affected your other relationships since you've been able to communicate with your husband through these other ways and brainstorming? You mentioned that it works in every area. What are some examples of how this has affected your other areas of life?
Well, I'll keep with the family first. So when my husband and I are communicating well and we can come together as a united front, that helps our entire family. So it helps our children. It helps our extended relationships with, in-laws and whatever have you. All of that improves when our relationship is strong and united. So that's like the most important because it's not just about you and your spouse. You have kids, you have moms, you have in-laws, you have sisters, you have like this whole extended network of people that are in your family that are going to improve when your relationship improves, and then you learn how to speak with other people with that same level of respect and safety. So that's like the first level, right? And then obviously, like I said, business relationships, when you can really come into business relationships with that level of respect and trust, you're going to be able to do things. I don't know how many of your listeners are entrepreneurs, but if you're an entrepreneur, you cannot do things on your own. That's just, I know everyone was like, especially with the women's movement right now, we can do it on our own. Actually, we're so much stronger when we work together as a team, when we uplift each other, when we do joint ventures together. All of that is going to make you stronger as a business owner, entrepreneur. So
absolutely,
when you can come to any kind of situation where you have that level of respect and the other person understands that you really value their opinions and their ideas, and you're going to brainstorm, and you're going to have that synergy together, they want to work with you. So it has totally, because it's been something I've really, really, really focused on this last year, and it has like 10x every area of my life.
Oh, I love that. I think you can sum it up as being valued, feeling like you're truly valued creates a synergy that you can interact with everybody on a completely different playing field. And let's talk more about that after the break. I think that's just a fantastic topic to go into some more. You can call in at 1-866-451-1451. You're listening to TuneIn Radio on the BBM Global Network. I'm your host, Lydia Taggart, and this is Layers of Communication. Welcome back to Layers of Communication. This is TuneIn Radio on the BBM Global Network. You can call in at 1-866-451-1451. I'm your host, Lydia Taggart, and we are visiting with Julie May today about being valued and creating synergy by raising everybody around us their value. We raise their value, and it creates this fantastic synergy, and how to create this communication. So, Julie, what other tips do you have for us to get someone to talk to us when they may not really want to?
Okay, so sometimes you have to change your level of expectation of the other person. So when my husband and I first got married, he was so closed off to any communication that we had to start with like small talk sort of things. So, we would just ask about work and, really it's the safety thing again, super safe subjects, It wasn't even necessarily politics or something like that. That can get heated. So we started small. So if you are starting a relationship or you're starting communication with somebody who's really, really closed off, you can't expect overnight that all of a sudden they're going to pour out their heart and soul to you all the time. Sometimes it's like, okay, we need to show you in layers that this is safe. So, we just started with talking about things we both enjoyed. We both really enjoy musical theater. We would talk about shows or things we wanted to do there. We would talk about really common layers that we knew we kind of had similar opinions on that were safe. So we started there. And then, we would add a layer of depth as that felt safe, and then add a layer of depth after that with using those tools that I talked about, where it was like restating what they said, making sure they feel validated. And so I guess my point is that you can't expect somebody who has maybe you have like a foster child in your home and they're coming from a damaged position. You can't expect that child overnight to go from that feeling of being so unsafe to really opening up to you overnight. You got to start with line upon line, just a little bit at a time, show them that they're trusted, valued. Then when they're done and they can't do anymore, then totally honor that and move on another day. So little bits at a time is something that's really going to work well.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, the layers. This is exactly what we're talking about on this Layers of Communication show, that there are layers of experience and life that add on to who we are, and we see our life and communicate through those layers. And when we can find a common layer to connect with someone, then it's easier to get to the core of who we are and who they are and share those common layers. And I love how you said the time is going to take some time to get through those sometimes. And that's why I have the free ebook on lydiataggart.com, because time is like the most important thing. Everything that we do takes time. But we're in this world where everything is now, and we've got the world at our fingertips, and we don't even have to look for it. Sometimes we can just think it, and it pops up in front of us on our internet and our devices that we carry around with us all the time. But relationships are not instant. They do take some time to develop that trust and just to get to know each other, really. How have you implemented time into your relationships, Julie? I know you're so busy with all your events and things that you do, and 7 kids, coordinating everything with the exes. And how do you make that time for your spouse?
Well, so one thing we did when we realized we weren't having dates as often as we should is we bought season tickets to some things that we knew we both wanted to go to. And so all throughout the year, we had like a set date every month where we knew we had to have a date because we already had tickets and we were going to show up. So it was like a silly thing that was like, okay, we are going to like force ourselves by pre-buying the dates for the entire year, and we're going to make sure we have tickets. And so that was something, we've actually done that for several years. That has worked for us. And so that could be something you have a common interest in. Us, it was like musical theater. We had Hale Center theater tickets all through the year. I know people who do it for sports or, I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do that are kind of along that similar thread, but would be of your interest. So we had to like force ourselves to just be like, we're doing this. And what was great is it was out of town. And so it like made it so we had like a little mini getaway every single month. And so then you have time to talk and it's relaxed and we would take off of work and, you know, but you may not be able to do that. But I'm saying it's great to schedule it ahead, to just say, this is our night. Nobody's messing with that night. And just know ahead every, you know, however often you guys want to go in and do a date. We do like a bigger one once a month, and then we try and meet once a week, just, you know, at a Denny's or something. It just depends on the schedule. But we just know that that time is already set aside and no one's allowed to touch that time. So scheduling ahead of time, yeah, totally worked. So that's kind of a silly trick we've done. And then as far as other communication with like my children and stuff, sometimes things have come up for them where it's not the most convenient time and they're still having a bad time. So I'm going to give you an example of that. Mm-hmm. In August, we had this huge event going on. There had like 500 people coming, gigantic 2-day event here. And the week of the event, my daughter, who just got married, she has this baby. So they had, I think the baby was like 3 weeks old, and her husband lost his job right after that. And she was like in full crisis mode. She was like, you know, they were basically pretty newlyweds, you know, they have the baby, and he lost his job. And, you know, she had depression and bipolar on top of that. And so it was just like this whole day of, holy cow, I don't think I can handle this. And she reached out to me, and I think it was maybe like 4 days before this gigantic event. And she's like, okay, you know, this is how I'm feeling, Mom. What am I going to do? And, you know, what was most important at that time was her. It wasn't the event. And so I dropped everything that day and went and spent the day with her. And that validated to her that what's super, super important in our lives is our family. And sometimes it gets like that where you just have to drop everything and just go take care of whoever it is, because it's always going to be your family that's got to be the most important.
I love that too. Just setting them up as a real priority is so important. What a great example of that. We'll talk more with Julie May after this break. You're listening to TuneIn Radio and BBM Global Network. I'm your host, Lydia Taggart, and this is Layers of Communication. Welcome back to Layers of Communication. I'm your host, Lydia Taggart, and this is TuneIn Radio and the BBM Global Network. We're visiting today with Julie May. Just before the break, she was saying how important it is to set our family as a priority and drop everything when it's needed. If there's a crisis or some sort of emergency, it is vital that we drop everything and keep them as a priority, or we're not going to be able to have that open communication them and have them know that they can come to us at any time. And that's what we're really looking for in a really solid relationship, that they would feel safe enough to come to us at any time for any reason. And Julie, can you share with us another of your favorite success stories about communicating?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So we have, like I said, we have like 3 kids that I had 3 kids when we got married. He had 3 kids when we got married, and then we have 1 together. So there's 7 altogether. And when we first got married, the stepkids relationship was pretty dang tough. Like, I mean, his I'm not even joking. He had 3 boys, and the oldest was 12 at the time, and that's just a rough age in general. They don't like change. They want stability. They don't like new people in their life. It's just kind of an age thing right there. And, and these were totally rough and tumble boys, which I did not have. I had 1 super mellow boy and 2 girls. And these guys would be like I'm going to wrestle all over the house and break things. And, they were that kind of boys, right? And I was like, had no freaking idea how to deal with that. I'm going to be totally honest with you. For like 3-4 years, I was just like totally lost, going, what on earth did I get myself into? This is like, and it was like, they live in Texas. And so we would have them all summer and then nothing during the whole school year. So it was hard to like build relationships when you have them, 2 months of the year and then nothing for the next 10 months, and so it was just super, super, super rough. And, we got to a point where we just didn't like each other. That's just where it was. It was just like, oh, great, kids are coming up, super, and I wasn't excited, and they didn't want to come. And so I was like, I have got to change my attitude about this, because if I'm feeling grumpy about it before they're even here, what is that going to like? That whole mood is going to be here when they get here. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to have to change that like pronto right away. And okay, so going back, that first year, they tried everything to try and get us to divorce, man. They did not want me in their lives. And so they would try absolutely everything on the planet to try and split us up. And so, here we are like 4 years in, and I was like, okay, hopefully they're seeing now that's not going to work. But I also have to change. It was me. I needed to change. I needed to change my attitude towards them and my feelings. Like I said, I was feeling like I didn't really like them very much at that point. And if we were ever going to have a relationship, I couldn't feel that way. So, I had to go back and really do some deep thoughts on where are they coming from? How hard has this been for them? And, what was their developmental stage at that time? And all of that to kind of understand where they were coming from. And then just to really understand, in all these kids were really good boys. I mean, they were a little rough and tumble, but a lot of boys are, right? They were not into bad things at all. These were really good boys. And so I was like, okay, I just need to change my attitude about this whole situation and show them just an extra amount of love when they come on their level and not push it. Because I had tried pushing it in the past and that didn't work. So I took back the pushing. We just did what they were comfortable with. We did a lot of just affirming that they were okay and they were safe and they were loved here, but like backing off a little and giving them their space too. And over the years, that kind of just developed a little bit more and a little bit more. And, I think it was the oldest one when he got where he was graduating high school. He is 27 now. But when he was graduating high school, him and the next brother younger than him came to me and said, you know what? We're really sorry. Like, we were butts to you the first couple of years, man. We tried everything. And, this was just completely out of the blue. We weren't talking about anything like that at all. We were just kind of hanging out. And we had gone down to Texas for the graduation and stuff and to support him. And he was getting his Eagle Scout, too. And they just came to me, both of them, and they are like, we are so sorry. Like, you have been there, and we were total stinkers to you. And, ever since then, we've had such a better relationship. And, it's been a lot deeper. It's been a lot more fulfilling. And those are the relationships that really matter. I mean, I could tell you business stuff. I could tell you all kinds of different things like that are cool. But having my boys, tell me they love me when they visit and give me hugs and want to be there for the visits and making an extra effort. We just had 2 of them up, when was it, last month. And they paid for their driving out here. It's like 14 hours, and they stayed and took off work. And for them to make that kind of effort out, they're adults and want to be here with us, that's what means the world to me.
Oh, wow. And now they're not just his kids. You said my boys, having my boys. They are yours now because
Oh,
you've done this experience with them of letting them be comfortable and grow into this relationship. So fantastic. Oh, I'm getting chills. That's just really awesome. I love those kinds of stories where it really is life changing when you can change the way you are and affect the people around you in such a magnificent, powerful way. Uh, Good job, Julie.
Thank you.
Oh, we didn't get a chance before this next break to hear where we can keep in contact with you. So I'd like to keep you a little bit longer after the break, if you can, Julie, to just tell us really quick how we can keep in contact with you. Can you stay a little longer?
Yeah, we'll get on and do a couple of things right there.
Okay, great. You're listening to TuneIn Radio, the BBM Global Network. I'm your host, Lydia Taggart, and this is Layers of Communication. Stay close. Welcome back to Layers of Communication on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. I'm your host, Lydia Taggart, and we're visiting today with Julie May. Just before the break, Julie was telling us about how incredible her life has been changed with her relationship with her stepsons. And now they're not just her stepsons, they're her boys. And how much I love that. Julie, tell us where we can keep in contact with you. How can we learn more from you?
So I'm going to send you to two different places. You can keep in contact with me at juliemayevents.com, and that's where you can find out a little bit about me and all of the events we have going on this year. And then we have partnered with Yes Women's Network recently, and holy cow, like the amount of things we're going to be able to do for you guys on Yes Women's Network is going to be crazy. One of the things you can do is you can just sign up for a free account and get access to a whole bunch of just free training on all different subjects like communication and things like that. So get on and go to yeswomensnetwork.com too.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for being here, Julie. I know you have another call you need to get to, so thank you for coming, and we'll let you go. But I'll do another little recap a little bit more for our listeners. Julie has shared with us today the importance of creating safe places and talking about safe subjects when we want to connect on a deeper level. It's important to really let the people that we're trying to connect with feel comfortable and not force it, even though they did force themselves to have dates by getting season tickets to the theater. And I think that's a great, fun idea. A lot of the things that she talked about really mirror my frame training. So I love that it's in more than one way that you can get this frame training to communicate with other people and change your point of view, your frame of reference to really be able to understand the people that you're trying to communicate with and what layers they're seeing their world through and how your layers can have a common link and connect you through those ways. One of my other favorite things that Julie mentioned today was dropping everything so that her daughter was a priority. And she knew that she was that important, even though she had an event planned and business things going on. So super important to make sure the people who are important to us know that they are so valuable to us. When we create that value in other people, we get a synergy going where we get to play on a different playing field, where we have this just more open, more energized kind of relationship. And validating the other person's feelings. When she puts her daughter as a priority, she's really validating that her crisis is a crisis, and it's real. You know, when we tell someone that they matter, it really matters to them. Restating what they say with a question on the end, letting them know that they are being heard and you want to hear more will open them up to discuss things in a deeper, more real way, more authentic. And brainstorming. Oh, this was one of my very favorite parts. It's not my way or your way. It can be our way. We can have a co-promise, not just a compromise where we have to give something up for the other, but we can have a co-promise where we brainstorm things together and create something together. So that's what I encourage you to do. Find ways to brainstorm and come to lydiataggart.com. Get your free download of the book about time, Creating More Time. Until next time, this is Lydia Taggart. I'm your host for Layers of Communication on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Layers of Communication with your host, Lydia Taggart. Tune in next week as we break through the layers in order to communicate and connect down to your core on Lydia Taggart's Layers of Communication.